From Nutrient Ag Solutions, this is Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, January 18th, 2021. We'll jump in, we'll take a look at temperatures across the region right now. They are much colder in the east than they are in the west. We've got Calgary checking in around -2, Medicine Hat at -1, Saskatoon -12, Regina -6 this morning, but -16 in the Winnipeg area here as we're caught up under some of the colder air rotating around the backside of this trough across eastern Canada. We can see the flow of the jet stream here as we look at the satellite picture across North America. We generally got ridging across the Pacific and then flow cutting in from northwest to southeast across western Canada down into the northern and central plains of the United States. And again, here's the trough up here with much colder air anchored within it. We'll flip it over and look at the radar picture and coming around the backside of that trough over the ridge. Again, we've got northwest to southeast flow here allowing clipper systems to make their way through the region. And that's going to be the theme as we head through the next week here. Opportunities for some light snow, not really amounting to much. Everyone got pretty much a uniform chance to pick up a trace to 5 centimeters of snow or so as we head through the next 5 days through the work week here across the prairie. Again, here's the flow as we get started this week. Big ridge over the over the Pacific and into western Canada and British Columbia, with the flow then coming up and over the top of that, and then around the backside of the trough here in the Great Lakes. So again, northwest to southeast flow, allowing clipper systems to come in across the region as we head through the coming week. Now, what's different here is the absence of bitterly cold air across the Arctic and across northern portions of Canada. So even though we have the flow coming in northwest to southeast through that region, we're not tapping into any bitterly cold air. So over the next 4 to 5 days, temperature is going to be, again, it's mid-January. They're going to be a little bit cold, but not like we're going to be seeing here as we get into the other side of the next 5 to 7 days. The last week of January, we're going to be trending much colder across the region as we begin to deepen a trough across the region. So again, over the next 3 to 5 days, we'll be watching clipper systems making their way through this region, little minor troughs, until we get into the last week of January. We start to anchor a bigger trough here from western Canada all the way down into the southwest of the U.S. This will allow some colder air then to finally settle in over the prairie. But again, the last 10 days, the last 30 days look very similar. Very mild air parked here, anomalously mild air for the month of January across really much of Canada. So as we take flow over that ridge, over the West Pacific, over British Columbia, take it over the top of that, and around the base of our trough in the Great Lakes and the eastern United States. You know, if we just looked at this pattern here, if you showed me this pattern, I might immediately think, well, we're going to be pretty cold here from Canada down into the Midwest. But again, when you're bringing in mild air here, and, you know, not only that, but mild air from the North Pacific, that's the source region here. Again, we're not really accomplishing much as far as driving cold Arctic air down into the Canadian prairie or into the Corn Belt of the United States. That will begin to change as we start to anchor that trough from western Canada down into the southwest U.S. We've been talking about this for a while. It is a slow process because, again, there's not much cold air to be found up there. It's going to take a while to establish that. So we will trend colder over the last week of January, but I don't know that we'll be, frigid, talking about an Arctic outbreak across the region, just certainly finally establishing a little bit more in the way of cold air across the region. Now, what that does to temperatures, again, trending colder, but what it does to precipitation is what I'm trying to get to here, is that I still don't see any real big disruptive storm systems in the future for the Canadian prairie here. Nothing like we saw with the big storm mid last week with the extremely strong winds and the blowing snow across a widespread chunk of the prairie, shutting down the Highway 1 there in parts of Saskatchewan. Nothing like that, but pretty frequent opportunities to get some flurries through the region. So we see precipitation. This is week 1, and then we've got week 2. The active spots here are really going to be setting up an active corridor across the south and the southern U.S. into the Ohio River Valley of the United States, and then the western U.S. as we get into week 2. This week we're going to be watching for, again, clipper systems coming out of the Canadian prairie, bringing flurries to the region, another storm system making its way through the southern U.S. So the Canadian prairie certainly doesn't have a bullseye on it as far as precipitation goes, but there will be opportunities for flurries making their way through the region. And I don't think we're going to be doing anything resembling a dry pattern either over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So trending colder, opportunities for flurries. That's your picture here for the next 7 to 10 days across the Canadian prairie. Let's look at this in a little bit more detail with the high-resolution NAM model. This will take us into midweek. We got some flurries across the region today. Those will continue to move from northwest to southeast out of the region as we head through the day today. Likely looking at a pretty quiet Tuesday. Before Wednesday, we see another little bit more robust storm system make its way through northern and eastern portions of the region. So in Alberta, north of Highway 16 for the most part. In Saskatchewan, maybe Saskatoon getting clipped there. Parts of southeastern Saskatchewan, maybe some flurries on Wednesday morning. And then better chances for snow as you make your way into southern and southeastern portions of Manitoba. So the Winnipeg area, probably a better chance of picking up a little snow from this system as we head through the day on Wednesday. And then on the backside here, additional flurries possible as we head into Thursday. We'll take it a little further with the high resolution, or not the high resolution, the long range European model here. So the flurries on Monday, likely a quiet Tuesday. Next robust system here north of Highway 16 for the most part till we get into Saskatchewan and Manitoba here. Chances for some snow as we get into Wednesday and Wednesday night. This system gets out of here as we get into Thursday and Friday. High pressure slides in on the backside, so we're probably looking at a pretty quiet weekend, but certainly can't rule out the chances for some flurries. Total snow accumulation between now and the end of the work week. Again, opportunities for just about everyone to pick up somewhere between a trace to 5 centimeters of snow. The heavier corridor is going to be across northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan, down into central portions of Manitoba with that Wednesday storm system there. But, Saskatoon, Regina, Winnipeg, I think you probably got the best chance there for maybe getting closer to 5 centimeters of snow as we get through the end of the week. But certainly that is minor, relatively speaking. We'll finish with a look at temperatures then. Again, keeping things pretty mild as we get started with the work week, but the cool down does arrive as we get into the last week of January. Those highs will be hovering around -5 over the last 7 days of January in Calgary. Very similar in Medicine Hat. Saskatoon, you'll be dropping from highs around 0 down into the negative teens as we get into the weekend and next week. Same thing here in Regina. And then Winnipeg, you're cold already. Being a little bit closer to that trough off to the east. -16 for your high today, -13 tomorrow. A bit of a warm up there as we get into Wednesday and Thursday, but it doesn't last long. You too feel the cold on the backside of the cool down here as we get into the weekend and next week. So there you have it. Trending colder as we head into the last week of January. Opportunities for light snow for just about everyone, but still really looking into the future if we want to talk about any sort of disruptive storm system across the region. That does not appear to be on the table over the next 10 days or so. I hope you have a wonderful Monday, a great start to your week. We'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.